What is up, ladies and gentlemen? So this is going to be the very first episode of I don't even know what we're calling it, but the real estate podcast. Carlos' real estate podcast for now. And that's kind of, getting into one of the themes of what I'm going to talk about today. Just kind of getting started. But anyways, before we get into that, this podcast is going to be tailored to new investors and old investors, people that have been doing it for a while, and people who are wanting to get started into it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Carlos Gill. I've been in real estate for about 5 years now. Started in 2020, right before I turned 18. At 18, I had a mentor kind of tell me to move out of my house, which, kind of kickstarted my journey. He got me into, almost like a frat house of people, getting started in wholesaling. And we had people move out, right? We had, but we had a solid crew that stayed, and we all are still in the business to this day. We're also still successful doing deals. So yeah, guys, enough. So this is, again, tailored towards, whether you're looking to do your very first deal or you're looking to learn some stuff to, do your 100th deal. This will be the podcast for you. But yeah, guys, I guess to get into my story, again, I told you all a little bit about it. I didn't get my first deal until 8 months after I started, right? It was like February of 2020 that I started, and I got my first deal in like October of 2020. And after 8 months, I only made $2,500. So whatever that number is, it's way lower than minimum wage, because what people make, $2,500 in a week, a month, whatever, right? Working a job at McDonald's, which again, there's nothing wrong with that, but it definitely is. It was a small amount, but all those things that I learned, I got punched in the face, many times. What I mean by punched in the face is got rejected all the time by sellers. Got told no, got told to F off, got told that my offer was too low, got told that I'm a scumbag, got told to get a real job, to stop scamming people, stuff like that. But again, all that just helped me, callous my mind to be able to, now when people tell me that, I'm like, all right, dude, this is a real job. All right, dude, whatever, fuck off, whatever, right? Those 8 months were invaluable, right? You might do it sooner, you might do it later, but just make sure you do it. And that kind of, comes with, same thing with this video. This podcast. This is the very first episode of the podcast. And I was looking into microphones. I was looking into, making sure I, kind of had it perfect, and making sure, I had a good setup, everything. But I was like, honestly, if I keep doing that, if I keep, trying to make sure I get it just right, get the podcast just right, make sure I know exactly what to say on here, I'm never going to start. And I was like, you know what? Let's just find, a place to record this podcast and just hit go, hit record, and just get started. And as I start, right, this is the very first episode, I am excited to look back in a few years, right, on episode, 1,000 or whatever we're on, right, and compare this very first episode to episode 1,000, because I could only imagine the leaps and bounds of where I will be in those thousands episodes, in that episode 1,000. And same thing for you on your, if you're cold calling or talking to sellers or doing your first deal, looking back at your very first deal to, your 10th deal, 50th deal, 100th deal, whatever it is, it's going to be way different. You'll be like, yo, I can't believe I sounded like that on the phone when I first started. I wish I had my calls recorded whenever I first started, because I'd be like, yeah, dude, this, I sound dumb. I sound like a kid, which I was a kid pretty much. And yeah, so guys, again, if, this is a testament right here to just get started. Just get started. Alex Hormozi, if you ever listen to Alex Hormozi, he talks about, I think actually he said, there's a quote from Napoleon. I think he says, quantity has a quality unto itself. You know how people are always saying quality over quantity? He said that he has a quality unto itself. And that ties back to the story of there's a professor that gives two different classes assignments, right? He gives, or in the same class, he gives one group an assignment and another group an assignment. He said, to y'all, I want you to make me the very best vase, like a pottery class, right? Very best vase this semester. At the end of the semester, you can be graded on the quality of your vase. And then these guys, he told them, hey guys, I want you to make me as many vases as possible. You're gonna be graded on how many vases you make, right? And at the end of the semester, these guys were kind of like stressing over this one vase, and they got it done, right? They made a vase, but these guys were just making vase after vase after vase after vase after vase, fucking up over and over and over again. And at the end of the semester, guess whose vases were better? These guys. These guys have the better vase because as you're doing more and more vases or more calls, whatever you're doing, you're gonna be like, man, I kind of suck. I'm still doing it, but I want to get better. I want to tweak this little thing. I want to say this in a certain way. I want to, just tweak little things, and over time, you're getting better and better and better. And it's kind of, you kind of learn to love not the journey or destination. Sorry, you don't learn to love the destination. You learn to love the journey, the grind of the hustle and bustle of every day, right? And sometimes it's like, damn, it is I'm busting my ass every day, but sometimes it's like, man, I love this. You're in it, and you're like, this guy told me to fuck off, but man, I got him to come back, and he told me to fuck off yesterday. Today I'm talking to him, we're working a deal, right? Even though he told me to fuck off the day before. Same thing with anything, any kind of sales job, any if you're out there, in your dating life, right? Like fucking, like it's like you love the chase, right? You love the chase. Not to get into all that, but yeah, you love the chase, and anyways, so that's kind of like the thing with this, this podcast, like, and same thing with like wholesaling. Like if you're looking to start wholesaling, or if you have been like teetering on the edge of wholesaling for a little bit, just get started. Like the number one thing I will say that you need to be doing with wholesaling is you need to be talking to people. If you're not talking to people, if you spend all the time just, and I will say this, like you can't spend all your time listening to podcasts, right? Like if you're just listening to podcasts all the time, watching YouTube videos on how to wholesale, and you never really take any action, you're not going to get anywhere. You have to actually like sit down and talk to people, whether it's talking to other wholesalers like myself, other investors, other flippers, realtors, right? Sellers is the main one, right? Like you need to be talking to sellers, but you need to just be talking to people. You need to be talking to people that like there is somebody out there that has something that you want, right? So you need to make sure you talk to as many people as possible every day, right? Or maybe you might have a job right now and you can't talk to that many people every day. Set a goal for yourself. I want to talk to 5 people every single day, 10 people, and make sure you're hitting that goal every single day. To obviously to one, make sure you get your shots at bat. You're shooting your shot right, and 2, you're again callousing your skin. Because you might not think that you're learning with those calls, right? But you are. You will be learning. You'll be like, man, well, I said this on the phone. He didn't like that very much. That might just be that one guy. I said it again on the phone. He didn't fucking like it either. Let me just not say that ever again, right? So those are things that you kind of learn. It's kind of like, you're putting your hand on the stove and you get burned. It's like, oh shit, let me not do that again, right? So you just got to keep putting the iron to the fire. There's a quote that says, the work works on you more than you work on it. So you're constantly learning while you're working. But anyways, guys, to get into kind of like wholesale specific stuff, another thing that I want to talk about is kind of going about getting your first deal. When it comes to, making calls, if you're going that route to make, to get your very first deal, one of the ways that I would say that I'm an expert in or that I've done a lot of, and I've, done a lot of deals through this, is Drive for Dollars. So if you don't know what Drive for Dollars is, it is going out in your car and finding houses that are essentially messed up, right? They have like super tall grass, they have a broken window, they've got a tarp on the roof, like a blue tarp, they've got a bunch of just stuff in there. Right? Like it just looks like a problem house, looks like a headache, looks like an eyesore in the neighborhood. So you go out, you take your phone, right, and you are adding you're adding every single house to a list. Like if you want to write it down, I have terrible handwriting, so I never did that. But if you want to write down every single address, right, write it down. Get a list. I'd get a list of like 100 houses, 100 houses that are an eyesore in the neighborhood, right? Get those houses, come back home, add them to an Excel sheet. I'll have some training, I'll have some like videos on it somewhere. And I think I do actually. If y'all have any questions, obviously feel free to reach out to me. But get them into a list. Call every single one of those people. Find their phone number. Go to like batch leads, batch skip tracing, a skip tracing service. Pay like 3 cents, pay like 5 cents, however much is the rate that they're going for right now. Pay that amount and call every single one of those people. That's going to cost you, if you're paying 7 cents per skip trace, per phone number, per address, it's going to cost you $7, right? So pay the $7, and just call every single one of those people. Now, you might get a deal from one of those 100 people. You might not. If you don't get a deal from one of those 100 people, what do you have to do? You have to go out next weekend, go get 100 more houses, or whenever you're off, right? Whenever you have time to go, drive, right? And also you can, on your way back home from work, on your way to work, leave a little early, leave a little later, whatever, right? Drive off, instead of taking the main road, drive off into a side road and, look around and see what houses you can find. For reference, it took me 2,000 calls on average. It took me 2,000 calls back when I was still cold calling myself. It took me 2,000 calls, bring, a call, right? Every time my phone, 2,000 phone ringing, whatever, right? To get one deal on average. And that comes out to like 900 addresses. So 900 addresses to get one deal, because the difference, right? The 900 calls, 900 addresses versus 2,000 calls is that every single one of those addresses has at least 3 phone numbers, or on average about like 2.5 phone numbers, right? So yeah, it took me 2,000 calls to get one deal on average. And that means, let's say you get a list of 100 houses every single weekend. That means 9 weekends, right, of you going out and getting your first, of you going out and getting a list of properties, right? Or if you get them all in one weekend, right? Which is, hey, if you were able to get them, more power to you, right? That means you were fucking in your car for a long ass time. Hopefully you can, be listening to a podcast like this while you're in your car. That way you're not bored out of your mind. But yeah, that right there, 900 addresses in one weekend or whatever, and then 2,000 calls. Right, so if you make 100 calls every day, it'll take you 20 days. 20 days to get your first deal on average. And then it all varies too, like on how good you are at sales, right? But if you can get in there, talk to a seller, and just be a person, right? Be a person, listen to them, figure out what's going on with them, right? Be like, yo, how can I help, right? How can I help? What's going on? What's the situation? Are you living there? You're not living there? Why not? Or how come, you're moving? Okay, where you moving to next, or you have tenants? Okay, what's got you even looking to sell it? Oh man, the tenants haven't paid rent in 6 months. Fuck, man, I can only imagine what that's doing to you, right? Stuff like that. Be a real person, don't sound like me, sound like yourself. Be a real person, have an actual conversation. And then at the end of the day, run your numbers and be like, hey, this is what I can offer you. Right, and then after that, go find yourself a buyer, and be like, hey, I've got this house for this price, buy it for me. And then if they buy it, you get paid, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. But the number one thing is finding the deal, and to find the deals, you need to be talking to people. Again, my business has been structured around talking to sellers, but you can be talking to realtors, talk to other investors, talk to other wholesalers, whatever. Just make sure you're talking to people. I mean, I couldn't stress that enough. I could not stress that enough. But yeah, guys, today will be a short episode. Hopefully y'all gain some value from it. On the future podcast, on the future videos, I will have more guests on here, people like myself, people that flip, people that lend, people that, do rentals, whatever, whatever there is to do in the real estate space. I know a lot of people that could definitely add some value to myself, because I have a lot to learn, that will be able to hopefully add some value to you. So yeah, make sure you tune into the future episodes of this podcast. Hopefully you can stick with me till episode 1000. But yeah, guys, hopefully you'll gain some value from this. But I will say this to end: just make sure that you're fumbling. This might not be the best way to say it, but you're fumbling your way to success. You can't be afraid to look foolish. I have a quote right here on my whiteboard right here. It's by Austin Butler. I don't know if he said it, but he said, "Embarrassment is the most underrated emotion." Go out there and make a fool of yourself. Embarrassment is the most underrated emotion. Go out there and make a fool of yourself. So with, one thing that I've been kind of, doing is, I've made a fool of myself, like cold calling before. Now I'm making a fool of myself, almost you could say on here, making a fool of myself by making a podcast. Like some people, could look at me and be like, yo, what does this guy know about, about real estate? It's not like I have $100 million business, doing real estate. There's people that don't have a podcast and they have $100 million business, right? And it's like, yo, hey, yeah, to them I'm a fool, maybe, I don't know. But I know there's some value that I can add on here. So yeah, go out there, make a fool of yourself, whatever it is. Go out there, make a fool of yourself. Embarrassment is an underrated emotion. So just go out there, create as many bases as possible, fucking destroy them, start over, make a new one, destroy them, start over, make a new one. But just keep at wholesaling. And then one more thing I will say, guys, all the time I see people start in this business, they make a bunch of calls, and they switch businesses. Or they quit real estate to start something else, right? And I don't know. My thing with that, teach their own, right? They might have a legit reason for doing it. I have not heard a legit reason yet. But it's guys, you took the time, you took the effort to make 2,000 calls or however many calls you made. You learned a lot from those calls. You learned a lot from the industry about during those calls, and to just quit on it, right? To just stop and, to go into a different business, you're restarting the learning curve all over again. You're restarting. It's now you're starting from ground zero with another business. Maybe you weren't close to your first deal with wholesaling after those calls or whatever you did, right? But you were a little bit closer than you are in this business, because you're starting at ground zero again. So just keep going at it. I promise you will get a deal if you keep calling, keep learning, right? You can reach out to people like me, reach out to people like, the guests that we'll have on the show, be like, hey, Carlos, what is going on? Let's say you did make all those calls, right? Let's say you made all those vases and your vase still sucks, right? It's still a shitty vase. It's like, Carlos, what am I doing that's wrong? Why? I've put in the efforts, but the results aren't coming. That's the kind of question you need to be asking. Not, okay, why haven't I got my first deal? Let me switch over here. This is an easier business. I honestly, I would say that'd be a mistake if you let's say you are in that phase right now, that you've been calling for a while, and you were deciding to quit. I'd say, yeah, guys, stick to it, because we've all been there. I've been there. At month 7 of me, calling every day, trying to get a real estate deal, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do this. But I stuck through it, not to toot my own horn. I stuck through it, and, I made the minimum wage, less than minimum wage for, those 8 months, right? And now I'm making, way more than minimum wage, right? It's definitely worth it. So stick through it. Make sure you stick through it. But yeah, guys, this will be it for the episode. Hopefully, I didn't make too much of a fool of myself. Hopefully you'll gain some value from this. And yeah, guys, make sure to tune in on whatever this is on. It'll be on the podcast app. It'll be on YouTube. So make sure to tune in to this. And yeah, guys, I will make sure to put somewhere where you can reach me. I've got Instagram. My handle on Instagram is Carlos Gill. Instead of the I, it's a 1. So Carlos G1L. I'm on Facebook, Carlos Gill. I'm on TikTok. Same thing as Instagram handle, Carlos G1L. Yeah, guys, feel free to reach out to me. And yeah, if you're in Houston, let's connect. Or, if you're in anywhere in the country or in the world, let's connect. And yeah, guys, hope you'll crush it.